Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakdown Podcast YouTube channel. My name is Corey, and in this video, we are going to be discussing the last two episodes of The Bad Batch, Season 1.
So sad.
Are you, though?
Dude, I am. I want more of this. I want so much more of this. I can't wait for Season 2.
All right, that's Vic. And before we get to breaking this down, we are going to let you know that we do our show live every Tuesday on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/MillerKing_51. The link is down below in the description. Come by and hang out with us, chat with us as we record our show live. Currently, we are talking Marvel's What If, as well as Titans, DC's Titans. So come by and check us out and join the chat. If you can't join the chat, you can always check us out. We are available on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts. So please hit subscribe to us on there and enjoy the show. Vic, I think with that, let's break this down.
Here we go. All right. This is, as Corey said, the final episode of Season 1 of The Bad Batch, Episode 16, called Kamino Lost. Last episode, we saw the Empire basically, I guess for all intents and purposes, what they would normally call glass the world, which is just surround it with Star Destroyers and blast everything into oblivion. And they completely decimated Topolka City is the part that we saw, which is where our team, the Bad Batch, and AZ3 and Omega are now sinking to the bottom of the ocean of Kamino. The Empire.
And we knew. We called this that they would escape. That they would get free.
Well, they tried to get out. They tried to get out of the city, but then they ended up having to run back in because they started blasting everything. And as the city sunk to the bottom of the ocean, the Empire takes off, and they're like, "Okay, well, that's that. See ya." Mm-hmm. Like, we're done. Bye. And while everything's going down, obviously the city is settling to the bottom, and Crosshair is still with them. He ends up getting trapped, and as the city starts to flood, he's basically left to the mercy of his brothers, who have to try to save him. And yeah, I think they were kind of thinking, they're like, you know what? Maybe we got to get to them because Omega was with them. That was the only reason why they were trying to get to him.
Yeah, Omega and her little robot friend are still in the room with him, and between the two of them, they're able to get him free.
Right.
At the same time, the rest of the Bad Batch are trying to get through the door, which is now closed. So
right,
they end up. Miraculously, they end up all getting out in time.
Well, they end up once everything settles and reshifts, they're able to get back together. And as they're trying to figure out how to get out, they're like, we need to get to the tubes, which is the tube that they came through to get from the landing platform, which is further out away from the city. Yes. So once they get to the tube, they're like, hey, the part of the city not the part of the city, the room where they had been, where they were born, had settled on top of the tube. So AZ uses his torch to cut a hole in the floor, and at the same time create a seal through that through the melting of the two layers together, so they can get inside of the tunnel without flooding it. And they start to walk towards the part of the tunnel that has the platform. And they're talking the whole time. They're kind of reminiscing as to why they're there, and why Crosshairs made a bad decision in leaving them, and he's trying to explain to them why they should come with him to join the Empire. And it's just a big back and forth. It's the same argument the whole time.
More of that, blah blah blah. But one key thing,
yes,
that was pointed out, something that I pointed out at least a couple of episodes back, was I thought that Omega was older than them.
Yes.
And it was mentioned also in this episode. So
right, because
we're going to assume that that's truth.
Well,
because why else would the writers bring that up in the first
and
place?
Again, basically what it comes down to, and in that thought process, Tech and Echo start discussing about I think it was Tech said, Omega was created before us. And if that's it, he said also that she has Gen 1 DNA, which means she is literally the exact same build as Boba Fett.
As Jango.
As Boba Fett.
Boba, yes.
Right.
Boba.
So what probably went down is Boba Fett was obviously the template for all of the clones. He's like, I want a clone of my own as payment. You're going to make me one. You're not going to augment it at all. I want it to grow naturally. They said, okay. And Nala Se was like, I want one too. But I want a little girl.
Like,
so she made... Good.
It's like, she's like, oh, you got a puppy? I want a puppy
right,
too.
Right. So she made Jango, Boba Fett for Jango. And in the same time, she made Omega for her. And that pretty much tells us that Boba Fett and Omega are brother and sister from the same strain and the same build. And the fact that the Bad Batch was not created right away, they made a bunch of clones, and then they were like, you know what, maybe we should see if we can do even more with these clones, and that's when they created the Bad Batch, the Clones 99, the Bad Batch, and in doing so, she was already there because she had already been created, and we all know that Jango and Boba Fett had left Kamino, and they were probably gone by the time they created the Bad Batch. So though she is their sister, she is older. She's just not aged at all because she's growing naturally. So
I called it.
You did. I'll let you have it. That conversation kind of puts Crosshair, he's like, I don't know how I like about it. I don't think I like this very much. So they proceed on. They get to like I said, they get to the lab, and they're like, we can't get out of here. Like, there's no way for us to get out of here. Like the tube is destroyed. And they're like, well, there is one way we can get out of here. And they're like, we can get inside of these tubes, and since they're pretty much airtight and they're pretty much airtight, then we can just get inside of them and float up to the surface. And they're like, okay, I guess that could work. And AZ's like, well, I can always make sure. And they're like, well, what are you going to do about all the falling debris? Because obviously that city is still sinking. There's a lot of pieces of it that are still coming down. And if it hits one of them, it could, break the capsule and kill them. I almost forgot. There was another scene in here where you got to see, I can't remember what that thing is called, but it was in the Gungan city when they were trying to get away from that big fish, and then that gigantic like dinosaur looking one came and ate the big fish.
Yeah.
That thing is apparently on Kamino as well. I don't remember what it's called, but it attacked them, and he had to get the power turned on in order to zap that thing so it wouldn't destroy the tunnel, but it had done damage to it. So they weren't able to get out the exact same way they did because they were losing power, and they needed power in order to get the lift to work. So they're like, we're going to get in these tubes, we're going to take these tubes up to the surface, and then we'll be good to go. AZ's like, I can maneuver you past all the stuff, but they had made mention of the fact that AZ was running low on power. He hasn't recharged in God knows how long, which droids need to recharge, and he was on his reserve batteries at that point anyway. So we knew that something harrowing was about to happen, obviously. So as they are entering their tubes, two per tube, except for Omega, who got her own tube. So as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, Omega's about to get killed. I was like, Corey wants her to die. I'm pretty sure this is what they're going to do to get rid of her. But then I was like, I don't think it's going to happen.
They're not going to do that. And I mean, it's really dumb. I mean, she's literally the smallest one, and you stick two grown men in one pod together.
Right. Yeah. Like,
it doesn't make any sense.
So they start to ascend. They get the guys end up popping up. Omega's coming up, and AZ3 is going back to get her to guide her up. But a piece of rafter hits her tube and starts to take her down. And AZ tries to remaneuver her, and in getting her freed, he gets stuck by that piece of beam, and he loses power. He starts to go down, and Omega, of course, not wanting to leave him in his watery grave, opens her freaking bubble and tries to dive down after him to free him and save him. And she is about to expire when Crosshair, who apparently they left his sniper rifle in the capsule with him, draws his rifle on Hunter, like he's about to put him down. Wrecker has got his gun drawn on him. He's about to put Crosshair down, and Crosshair at the last moment shifts, fires his grappling hook, grabs AZ, pulls AZ and Omega to safety. Bob's your uncle. I told you he was going to end up saving her. I got that one. If you get yours, I get mine, because I told you he was going to do something to sacrifice himself to save her. Now, he didn't die, but he did do what I said, which was to save Omega, which puts him into a slightly better light now. Like the fact that he's not completely gone to the dark side is basically what it comes down to. And once she comes up and they get her to the surface and they get to the platform, which they battled their way there, he's like, you saved me, I saved you, we're even, that kind of thing. But that kind of thing always in the end turns into, I'm not really a bad guy. I'm just misunderstood.
Yeah, exactly. So they end up getting to their ship.
Yeah, they get to the platform, they get to the ship, they try to talk Crosshair into coming with them. They're like, hey, you should come with us. He's like, no, you should come with me to be part of the Empire. He's like, did you not just go through all this with us? They knew you were here. They still destroyed the city with you in it. They don't care about you. He's like, they do. He's like, they know a superior warrior when they see one. And he's like, I don't know why you think that's a thing, but you either get in the ship and come with us, or the Imperial Scout Squad's going to come through and catch us, and we got to go. And he's like, I'm not leaving, and they took off. So
they should have said, you can either get in the ship and leave, or you could stay here on this platform around nothing but water.
Yeah. Well,
so you got a choice.
He knows he's going to get picked up, though. Think about it. So it's a landing platform, right? What tends to happen with the Empire is they will go through and they will destroy a world. They'll glass a world. They'll just blast it until there's nothing left, right? And then after the big destroyers leave, a capital ship will come in, and that's got all of the because X-Wings, sorry, not X-Wings, TIE fighters can't jump into hyperspace. So they need a carrier, basically. So the carrier comes in with the TIE fighters, and they search the planet to make sure there's no survivors, and they take out anyone who's left. So they're going to find him, and when he reports in that he's one of them, they're going to take him back to the Empire and be like, hey, we found this guy that was still on the planet after we glassed him.
And they're going like, I thought he was dead.
They're going to be like, we thought we got rid of you. Jeez, why can't we get rid of you?
Yeah. You're like a cockroach. It just keeps coming back.
But with that being said, he is fully indoctrinated in the rhetoric and the propaganda of the Empire. And that's what a lot of people fall for at the beginning of the Empire. That's why we have so many people volunteering to be stormtroopers, even though they end up being brainwashed. Like, all of this is because the propaganda machine that the Empire puts out is top notch. Like, they've got him wired in, and he thinks, because he believes he's superior and he believes the Empire is superior, he believes that they belong together, and he won't change his mind in this season, obviously. But I think by next season, his mind will end up being changed. Now, end of the episode. That's everything that happened, but this is the part that truly, 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 truly brought joy to my heart. At the end of the episode,
and it also ties into something we said like in the very beginning of the show.
Right. So the end of the episode, you see one of the Lambda class shuttles landing on a mountain research facility of some sort. Obviously, we know that they like to cut into mountains and valleys and create these things. We just saw that where they did that in the Big Valley on the last episode, 2 episodes ago. So the ship lands, and the stormtroopers are offloading Nala Se. She was kidnapped by the Empire because of her knowledge of cloning. And we get a human researcher walks out and says, "Oh, Nala say, we know everything about you. We're your greatest fans. Yada yada yada. Let's go in and begin." And that technician was wearing the exact same uniform as the Doctor in The Mandalorian.
Yep.
So this planet that they're on, I am fairly sure that this is Planet Wayland, and that is Mount Tantus.
Named after Waylon Jennings.
And that planet is Mount Tantus. In the extended universe of Star Wars, the Emperor had started his own cloning program. We know this because of the last three. We won't go into detail, but because we know what happens with Snoke and yada yada. Basically, the Emperor had created this repository where he was keeping all of his biggest and baddest secrets, and that's Mount Tantus. It's also where he started his own cloning program, but unlike Kamino, he was using a different form of technology to do his cloning. And that cloning basically it's called if I remember, it's called a Sparti cloning process. And Sparti cloning is different from the way the Caminos did. Caminos were perfectionists. They could create a clone. The clone was solid, stable, and ready to go. But it was done over 10, 15 years to get them to the point where you have Captain Rex, right? You have these good clone troopers. The Sparti cloning process literally would take the DNA and create a full-grown adult clone in a year.
Wow.
And so but the bad part about it is there was no while they were cloning the troopers, they were educating, doing things to them to make them smarter, faster, stronger, right? The Sparti process, it just creates a being, but then that being's mind is blank, and they would download a person's consciousness into that clone, and that clone would become that person. So what the Emperor was trying to do was creating backup drives of himself. He has all these clones, and then if he dies, they just take his basically his mind, his consciousness, put it in that clone, and now Emperor Palpatine is back again, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what they were doing in this facility.
Wouldn't that be a little difficult though? It's if they did a download, and then he goes through a week, and then he dies, and hadn't done an update, that new one's not going to know anything that happened in the last week.
Yeah, but they don't care. I mean, as long as they download him at the point where
he promoted me last week.
Doesn't matter. He doesn't care.
I don't remember that.
He'll also force lighten you anytime he wants to. So are you going to really go up to him and give him a hard time? No. But so here's why this is so exciting to me. There's a story called Heir to the Empire, and in that story, that's where they introduce Grand Admiral Thrawn in the books. And for anybody before we had all the sequels and stuff, these books were what we got to continue learning about the Star Wars story, right? So in Heir to the Empire, we meet Grand Admiral Thrawn, who in this storyline was in the Empire already. He was one of the only alien beings who had rank in the Empire, because if you notice, almost all Imperial officers are human. But he was, in this story, he goes to Mount Tantus and he finds out that the Emperor has been stockpiling all of this stuff and all this cloning technology, and these clones are in there. And at that point when they do the story, now this is further on down the storyline from now. This is the very start of that is what we just saw. This, what I'm talking about, is way in the future of this. But what this says is they are tying together Mandalorian with Bad Batch, and by tying Mandalorian with Bad Batch, they're also kind of creating a way to legitimize some of the stupidity from the last three movies in order to kind of justify what was done. And
yeah, it seems that's what.
With that being said, this is where we could have had Grogu. My crackpot for this is that Nala Se goes there when she gets there, they already have Grogu, because at this point they would have already kidnapped a bunch of younglings and trying to test them, trying to create a force sensitive clone in order for the Emperor to put his consciousness in, right? So with us knowing that, I think that if that's the case, then Nala Se is probably how Grogu got out of Mount Tantus, and why we have Grogu in The Mandalorian. Like
I could see that.
It
I could see
fits.
that being the case.
So with that being said, the other part to this is the story of the Heir to the Empire has a character in it called Joris Sabayoth, I think his name is. His last name is Sabayoth, but I think it's like Joris Sabayoth. And there is another character in there called Luuk, Luuke, and Luuk.
Okay.
I can see it in your face already, but listen. So Luuk is a clone of Luke Skywalker, and do you know how they got the clone of Luke Skywalker?
I'm gonna guess that they snuck in and stole his comb out of.
Even better. Remember when they cut his hand off in Cloud City?
Don't tell me they found his hand.
They got his hand. Well, they got it. Obviously, you know that they got his lightsaber, right? Because they cut off his hand. His lightsaber and his hand went down that hole. We know that they have the lightsaber, so somebody had to have found the hand, right?
Yeah, but that was a Cloud City, right?
Yes.
And isn't there like nothing below?
Yeah, that's not just like a gas ball. It's not just like a gas ball, but it didn't even necessarily have to have fallen out of the thing. It could have fallen into like a scoop or something. Because remember when he falls, he goes through a tube that slides him down, and he grabs onto a post at the bottom of that tube before he falls out. So that hand could have like landed on that slide and just been sitting there. And some droid goes through and finds it and like, look at this, and someone's like, what the hell is that? And then they figure out it's Luke's. Doesn't matter how they got it, but they got it.
Hold on, no, here it does matter, because here's what they need to have a special. It's just one-off episode where we follow the events that happen after him getting his hand cut off. We just follow the hand. The hand is the main character throughout the entire episode. And we follow, from a droid grabbing it and cleaning out the filter, and then it goes into a big trap, which goes into something else and takes it somewhere else, and then we need to see the events that lead up to
either way
finding the hand and the saber.
The Emperor ends up with it. It ends up in Mount Tantus. He ends up cloning Luke and creates a dark side version of Luke Skywalker. So almost like a real life version of what we saw on Dagobah when he goes inside the tree and he faces himself, he slices the helmet, he slices the head off, and it ends up being himself. So he does end up fighting himself in this mountain in the book. But because they've turned all of this stuff is slowly becoming canon, we actually have the possibility of this is what happened. So now think about this. We know that they're trying to clone Luke. Imagine if Luke found out that clone, that they were doing that, and he realizes if they get a hold of me in any way, shape, or form, they could create evil versions of me, the most powerful Jedi alive right now. And that's why he ran. That's why he was hiding on that planet, rather than on Yantu or whatever it was, rather than like being there and doing stuff. Like he realizes like I'm a danger to everybody if I exist. So it kind of wipes out just the guilt aspect of what happened with what's his face, with the Nephilim,
right?
And creates a I want to save everybody kind of situation. So I don't know where they're going with it, but adding this in there creates so many new threads that can be tossed out there to combine things together. But the bottom line to this is I feel like we're going to get a live action Omega at some point, probably in the Book of Boba somehow. And I am very interested to see how far they go with the remainder of the Bad Batch, whether or not they survive or whether or not they end up getting killed off. So.
All right, that is going to do it for this episode. We do want to thank you for watching. And, we do have other shows on the channel. So please make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and enjoy those episodes. And it also does help us out as well, too. So, and hit the bell, the notification bell.
Ding that bell.
And ding the bell. And leave us some comments. Tell us what you think and what your thoughts are on our opinion. So, on behalf of Vic,
That's me.
I'm Corey. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.
See ya.